independence.
Independence and interdependence. It's quite interesting, but we're having this conversation in terms of fragmentation, and I understand just last week in court, ideally, you would expect the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution and the EACC to work in tandem to perhaps prosecute a case for the good of the public in terms of graft and whatnot. But Wakili, we had an interesting scenario where the ODPP lawyers and the EACC lawyers were at loggerheads in regards to a case touching on a graft case for the KPC managing director. Now, this is not a sight to behold, especially when we're talking about it's a chain. We need the strength of the chain, and a weak link will definitely break it all down. How would you highlight this unfortunate turn of events? How do we avoid such scenarios in the future?
Such a phenomenon is very common. Actually, it's historical, and this is not the first time it has happened. And it takes me back to the same concept or notion I've said of the dynamic of selectivity. Because remember, the boss when it comes to prosecution is the DPP. But the boss when it comes to investigation is either the EACC, the DCI, and those other agencies. These people could probably be pursuing different agenda that maybe the other person, so the left does not know what the right hand is doing. And it is primarily because institutions have not really deeply internalized the tenets that undergird the criminal accountability system in Kenya. And that's why people are used to the same ways of doing things like in the past. You know, they do not understand that, first of all, the mandate of prosecution belongs to the DPP. They also do not understand that when you are exercising, for example, the investigatory power, which is a power under the various agencies conferred by the Constitution or the relevant law, there ought also to be some sort of accountability. So the DPP's office, when you see such kind of spats or disagreements on who to prosecute, who not to prosecute, when you see the files being returned by the DPP,
one wants to withdraw, the other doesn't.
Yes. Yeah. It seems to me that the agenda that these institutions are serving, there's no synergy. You know, there's no coherence, there's no coordination. In fact, interdependence is completely a different thing. They're interdependent because the DPP depends on them to conduct investigations. Now, how do we resolve that problem? That is the question. And by the way, the spark between these institutions, the other one that was witnessed was a case that was filed by Okeya Mtata Okoiti. And in that case, Okeya argued that the power to draft charges actually belongs to the DPP. So you could see a case that in one way or another could have been sponsored by either appendage of the government to put the DPP and the DCI at loggerheads. Okay. And the argument there is that the DPP only has power to prosecute, and they actually went ahead in splitting hairs and saying the power to prosecute commences at the time when the investigators have done the investigation, they have drafted the charges. So they even wanted to take away the drafting of the charges from the DPP and arrogate it to themselves. When you see such mad craze for the arrogation of power that are not constitutionally sanctioned, it tells you something. What is the agenda? And I think that is when it comes to intergovernmental coordination, particularly those people who are involved in the criminal justice accountability system, it is proper that these institutions sit back again. Perhaps there need to be a law, a legislation that should govern all this. Otherwise, we will still have situations where the DCI presents suspects in court, the DPP is not even having the file, the charges have not been drafted. Yes, so the greed for power of investigation still really has to be checked.
Okay. And Sheila, as you come in, perhaps